Well, thank SCMS for buying lunch.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. I saw Doug, he stopped by to pick up some gear because he was going to the NRB convention in Nashville. So he came by and, loaded up his truck with all kinds of Angry Audio stuff, drove up there and he says, "Oh, by the way, you want to do some SBE meetings? I'll pay." And I said, "Okay." And here we are. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Thank you. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, SCMS. It's very kind of you. So Um, all right. So I won't bore you with the Angry Audio spiel, and I won't tell you about my background because I think most of you already know me. So instead, I'll just kind of get into the meat of it. I want to talk to you about a couple of new products that we have that I think are interesting, and I'm kind of that way too. Like if we have something new that that's all I want to talk about. So if you have any questions about stuff that isn't new, I'll answer those too. But I'm kind of the what have I been working on lately kind of guy. So I'm gonna just tell you about what we've been working on lately. And it's a couple of products. I'm gonna share my screen with you, but don't worry, I'm not gonna do a PowerPoint or anything like that. So give me a moment to share here. You let me know if you're able to see. You should see
Looks
Google.
good. Yep.
Okay, good. So we'll use the Angry Audio website as a visual aid. So the first product I want to talk to you about today is the Stereo Toolbox. This is a brand new audio processor that we just launched. Started shipping them in December. Um, it's pretty fun. So by way of background, let me tell you where this came from. When I was CEO of Telos, I met Hans von Zupten from Timeo for the first time, and we really clicked. We were just like instant buddies. I really like this guy. And so we were kind of back then, we were kind of, I don't know how to use this word, co-opetition. I guess we are co-opetitors. I don't know. We competed and we cooperated. So we competed because at Telos we had the Omnia brand, so we did audio processing, and they still do. And then there was Stereo Tool, and that was Hans's product. That's from Timeo. And so in some ways we didn't really see Stereo Tool as much of a competitor because it kind of occupied a different space. And but that was that. And then the other thing was that he had certain technology that he had written, certain algorithms that we were very interested in licensing. So there are pieces of Timeo software inside of Omnia processors to this day. And so that's what I mean by a co-opetition. We cooperated, but we also competed. And fast forward some years, and I'm no longer with Telos, and he's doing other things. And he was whining to me about something. He said, "No matter how great I make Stereo Tool, I still feel like I'm at a disadvantage because not everyone wants software." And he says, "I think I need a box." And he's done some boxes, and they haven't really worked out for him in the past for various reasons. And so I said, "Well, how about if I make a box for you?" And so that kind of started this project. The idea was it's going to be Angry Audio hardware and then Timeo software. And so began our cooperation. But we're not competitors. We're cooperating fully in this. And it turned out to be a lot of fun, much more fun than I thought it would be. Maybe the most fun I've had on a project for a while. And uh, and it's a pretty amazing product. So let me just kind of walk you through it. There's a picture of the front of it. I'm gonna take you to this call out section, and we can look at the front and the back. Here we go. So on the front we have headphone amplifier and a way to monitor things while we're making adjustments. We have a full color display and a rotary encoder for navigating things on the front panel, but there's really not much to navigate on the front panel. It's kind of a big fancy IP setting thing on the front panel because you really make all of your adjustments, and you want to make all your adjustments via browser. It's really the way to do it. You don't want to go menu diving on a little screen like this. So usually it just displays meters, or in this case, you're seeing the splash screen. That's what comes up when it first boots up. And you really just from the front panel, the only thing you do is decide which meter configuration you want to look at and set an IP address if you don't know what it is. And then once you've done that, you can make all your changes via via the browser, pointing a browser at it. And so there are some little enunciators right there next to the display. They're kind of hard to see. I don't know if I can zoom in on that or not, but if you can see my mouse pointer right here, there's like check engine lights right there. And so you really don't want any of those to come on. So, you got power fail, network fail, audio backup, alert, which is like, okay, there's something wrong, but it's none of the things above. It's something else, it's over temp or something like that. So the idea is you never want any of those to light up. And then on the rear, we've got analog input, XLRs, and Studio Hub, of course. Has to have Studio Hub on it now. And XLR outputs and Studio Hub outputs, analog. We have AES in and AES out. That's digital stereo. And then right here we have a port we call AES 192. So this is also a digital output, but it's multiplex digital. So it comes out at 192 kilohertz. We have analog multiplex, 1 and 2. We have a GPIO connector. We can talk about that a little bit. We've got 2 Ethernet ports, main and backup, and nothing here. I take it back. There's nothing here in the picture, but there actually is a USB connector there now on the product. And then over here you got your power supply, main power supply, but over here you've got a barrel connector, a DC barrel connector, because you can run a backup power supply on this box. And I would like to tell you it's a wall wart, but it's not. It's a line lump. It's like, it's the size of a brick, and it's got cable coming out of both ends. You've seen these things. And so that's an option. That doesn't come with the processor, but I think it's less than $100. It's $80 or something like that. And so you can have a main and a backup supply going that route. And interestingly enough, that's about the only option that is available for the product. So we kind of looked at this whole thing, and as we were working on it, we kind of kept asking the question, what else can we put in there? What else can we put in there? And it started out, kind of being a simple, straightforward project, but by the time we were done, we had taken pretty much every feature that Timeo has ever made and making it a standard part of this product. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you were to go and purchase an expensive Omnia, the Omnia 9 happened on my watch, so we'll talk about that one because I'm very familiar with it. So, if you were to go buy an Omnia 9, you would pay $13,000 for before the SCMS discount, by the way. I mean, you probably wouldn't pay 12 or 13. You get some discount on that. But the list price would be 12 or $13,000 for an FM processor. And if you wanted to add HD, you would buy a license for that, and that would be another $2,000. And then if you wanted watermarking, you'd buy a license for that, and that would be another, I think it's $1,000 or something like that. And I would say the Perfect Declipper is an add-on, but I don't think it is anymore. It used to be, but I think that's actually included in the base price now. So you can kind of see where this is going. You can end up with a pretty expensive product by just adding certain features to it. And I get it. You want to, if you're Telos, you want to scale the product with the you don't want to make it too affordable for everybody. If a guy is doing major market stuff, he should be paying major market pricing. We took a different approach. We said everybody gets access to the Perfect Declipper. We don't charge extra for that. Everyone gets the same clipper. By the way, that's kind of interesting. There's a clipper in this thing that's kind of the latest generation of the same clipper that is licensed for the Omnia 9. So some would say that these two products sound very similar to each other because they share the same clipping technology, and it's true. This one's a little newer. I think the one in the 9 is version 3, and this one's version 4. I couldn't even tell you what the differences are between the two, but I think Hans told me that there are some differences, maybe a little less distortion or something like that. But if you've ever heard a stereo tool clipper, and you have, if you've listened to an Omnia 9, it is staggeringly clean. Like it almost defies, it doesn't sound quite right when you first hear it if you're used to this level of loudness having some distortion in it. And then you hear the Omnia 9 and it's just as loud as the Omnia 11 across town, but there's no distortion in it, or there's less perceived distortion in it, and it's kind of weird, almost unnatural, but it sure does get loud if you want it to. And so I guess that's the point. You're in a market where you want to be the loudest on the dial. This is the box that'll do that. I mentioned the built-in watermarking. It is Nielsen in the US, but this is an international product, so it also does Kantar, and I think there's another one that I keep forgetting the name of, but there's another watermarking standard out there, but it does all of them. So you just go into the browser and decide which one you want to use and turn it on. It does FM and HD out at the same time, and there is no extra license for that, so that's included in the price. If you're not doing HD, you could use that second output for streaming. A lot of people do that. Let's say I'm going to use this one for my FM, and I'm going to use this output here for streaming, processing my streams, and it's great for that. RDS is included, and let's see, remote control. Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. It uses a standard browser, um, like Google Chrome or something like that, something modern. And there's no apps to install. There's no Java, no Flash, none of that junk. It's HTML5. The only thing that's really a requirement is that it be fairly modern, something that's been made in the last several years. You can drive it from your phone or a tablet or a laptop or a desktop, and it's got a beautiful, intuitive interface. And I'll talk about the interface in just a minute, a little bit more. It's got built-in diversity delay so that you can synchronize the FM and HD1 outputs. And we talked about the backup power supply. Didn't talk about the dual Ethernet ports. There's really, you can use either port for anything effectively. But I kind of like to think of them as the live wire guy. I kind of like to think of them this way. One of them is for data and one of them is for live wire. But that's just kind of the way I think about them. And so you may think about them differently. Either one can do pretty much anything. But live wire, I want to dwell on that for a minute. So you could use one of these Ethernet ports for injecting your RDS data, and that'll work fine. You can use it for your browser access, and but you also could use one of them or both of them for LiveWire. So this product will ingest LiveWire. So if you have a LiveWire network, you can bring the audio in that way instead of bringing it in via analog or digital. Or you can do both, which is kind of cool. So you could say, I'm going to have LiveWire be my main input, but if it ever goes silent, and I get to define silence in the software, I get to say, well, if it ever goes silent, which is, 20 seconds of nothing, then I want you to flip over to this backup input, and that could be analog, that could be digital. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And when I say LiveWire, I mean the AES-67 kind. So that could also be Dante or Ravenna. Pretty much anything that's AES-67 compliant can be ingested. Now, that's an input. Now, in addition to that, we've got I can't remember what we call it. I think we call it an experimental feature, where we're working on doing LiveWire outputs also. So you would be able to ingest a clean LiveWire stream, process it, and then take the processed result, make a stream out of it, and send it back into your network. And the reason I say that's experimental is because it hasn't been tested to the point where we can say, yeah, that's solid and there are no issues yet. We haven't seen any issues yet, but we haven't really tested it very well either. So that one's kind of a be careful. It's in there. Just be careful with it. And honestly, It's pretty cool. You can put this thing on your network and it becomes a network appliance, if you will, for processing audio. And I guess those are kind of the high points. I told you I'd talk to you a little bit about the user interface, and I don't have any pictures of it, which is kind of dumb. I probably should have brought a picture. And if I had an active one on the bench right now, I could just point the browser at it and we could look at it. And that would have been smart too, but I didn't do that either. So you're just going to have to take my word for it. The interface is pretty. It's intuitive. It is not. If you've ever played with Stereo Tool in the past, you might have noticed that it was kind of cluttered and an awful lot of controls. And so this kind of an interesting detour. All of these guys, and I guess I know the vast majority of them now, but all of them, whether it be Bob or Frank or Corny or Hans, they all kind of have their own approaches. They all have their own recipes. And so in the case of Corny, he doesn't really want you to mess with it too much. So he wants everything to be automatic. And so he doesn't want a lot of tweaking going on. And whatever adjustments he does give you are very constrained so that even if you go extreme on your end, you can't really break it. So that's kind of Corny's philosophy. Bob and Frank more kind of in the middle. You could make a bad sound if you tweak things a little too much in the wrong direction. And and then there's Hans. And my criticism for Stereo Tool always was the same, and that is, geez, Hans, there's 1,000 ways to make Stereo Tool sound bad. And he would argue with me, and he'd say, yeah, but I build for the power users, and the power users want all of that flexibility. They complain because they can't get that kind of flexibility in Orban and Omnia, so I give them the tools so they can do pretty much anything. And so I struggled with that a bit, not because I disagree with them necessarily. I think there is a market for a processor that you can, kind of take all the limits off of and do whatever you want with. But I think it potentially can be a problem for people who are not experts. So, if you're an expert, you're not intimidated by that. You just walk up to the thing and start driving. But if you're not an expert, and these days there are an awful lot of people who are putting processing in place at stations, and they're not experts, sadly, and they kind of just want to be able to walk up to it and turn it on and walk away. They wouldn't know what to adjust even if you gave them the adjustments. And so we went back and forth for a while, and we eventually actually came on a pretty cool compromise that Hans did. I didn't come up with this. It was just a result of my whining that caused him to finally respond with this particular idea, but it's really brilliant. And so I'll share it with you. So in the past, in Stereo Tool in particular, you could take a slider, for example, and you could max it out. Let's say its scale went from 0 to 100. So you could put it at 0, you could put it at 100. And my complaint would be, dude, there's only, a range between 40 and 60 that anybody would ever use. So constrain it. Make sure it never goes lower than 40 and never higher than 60, and people won't mess it up. And he would say, dude, you're not everyone. There's people out there that want to drive this at 80, and there's people out there that want to drive it at 20. And I don't want to take that away from them. So his idea, which was really cool, and it's implemented in the Stereo Toolbox, is that all the controls are constrained in range. So using my example here, the lowest you can push the slider is 40, and the highest you can push the slider is 60. So I'm happy because, you move that slider back and forth, you're not going to screw anything up. But he's happy too because there's still a little number field right next to the slider. And so you can type anything you want in there. And it maxes out at 60 on the slider, but if you type in 80, you'll get 80. And so we're both happy. The power user is still happy, and the novice is still happy. And I think it's pretty cool, pretty clean, pretty easy solution. Rather than arguing about how much range we should give people. So the user interface in Stereo Toolbox is, I would say, it's probably the cleanest stereo tool interface you've ever seen. And in fact, I believe the result of the work that we did together has caused the interface on Stereo Tool to get better. It's been simplified. We've removed a bunch of stuff that people haven't been using for years. There was an awful lot of, what does this do? Oh, well, back 12 years ago, somebody wanted to do such and such. Okay, well, why is it still in here? I don't know. I think somebody might get mad if I take it out, So you get this bloated interface that is almost incoherent at some point. And so we brought it back, made it coherent, made it easy. And I think it's really I think it's very attractive and it's very simple to drive. The other thing that's interesting, and this is a new stereo tool feature, is a function called advanced dynamics. And this is relatively new. I'd say probably within the last year or two. And advanced dynamics is kind of a different approach to the dynamics section of the processor, which I always thought was kind of the weakest thing in stereo tool. It wasn't bad. It was just pedestrian. It was like there wasn't anything advanced going on. It was, the same old multi-band compressors with variable attack and release times and variable crossover frequencies and, the usual thing. And what advanced dynamics is it's a bunch of automation applied to the multi-band compressor. And so it makes a lot of changes on its own without you needing to do anything. And those changes are very intuitive. And they sound really good. It also makes the product, if you use advanced dynamics in your preset, and by the way, when we ship the box, it has a default preset in there that uses this advanced dynamics. What I've noticed is that it's not very sensitive to format changes, which is kind of a cool thing. So, the same preset could be used across multiple formats, whereas with the old dynamics, you'd get it sounding right for a particular format. You'd change to a different format, and then it'd be it doesn't work anymore, and you'd be back in there tweaking again. So this is pretty cool, and this is part of Stereo Toolbox. Maybe the biggest deal here is the price. It's $39.99. It's $4,000. But I see Doug Tharp is on the call, so he'll probably give you a deal. I think you ought to make him at least throw in free shipping or something like that. But yeah, the list price
Free shipping it
is
is.
$39.99. I'm just gonna help you give your money away, Doug, since you didn't buy me lunch. You bought them lunch, but you didn't buy me any lunch. So,
I
you're
can
gonna
stop
pay.
by later and buy you lunch.
Okay, that sounds good. So yeah, it's $39.99, and already we've had people that have just said, this is crazy because $4,000 shouldn't buy this much processor, and I think it should. Radio. I mean, there might have been a time when a 10 or a 12 or a $14,000 radio processor was okay. It ain't this time today. We're not dripping with excess bucks that we don't know what to do with. Radio is more competitive, it's more price constrained, and so we thought, hey, what if we make a high-end product, a major market processor, and we price it at the budget, price it like a budget category, budget processor, and give people that much more flexibility and power and see what happens. And so far, we've sold out the first two production batches. It's doing really well, and so I think there is a market for such a product. And that's kind of it. I'll pause, and you can ask me any questions if you have any.
Does it come with all of the stereo tool options that you normally have to pay extra for?
Yes and no. Actually, that's a really good question. Yes and no. It is not stereo tool. It is similar to stereo tool. Because I've had people ask me this question. They'll say, "Well, so can I go get a new version of stereo tool and put it in here?" No, it's not like that. It's software that was written for this particular machine, and so as a result of that, it's probably not going to follow stereo tool, exactly. So, let's say that he launches some new feature in stereo tool. It probably won't show up in stereo toolbox right away. So it's going to require some conversation and some adaptation and some testing and whatnot. But the question you asked very specifically was, what about the features? And so if you were to compare this to the software, it would compare mostly to the product that they call ST Enterprise. And ST Enterprise is like a server class version of Stereo Tool that does multiple simultaneous processing chains. So you would do FM HD or, FM streaming in this case. And then it's that platform, it's ST Enterprise that even has the watermarking technology. That's not available in the Stereo Tool. But if you wanted to kind of think about it, if you were to compare it to the standard Stereo Tool, it has most of the advanced features that Stereo Tool has. Couple of exceptions. We did not put in the BIMP, what Hans calls the BIMP, which makes me crazy. It's the something mic processor. I can't recall what, but it didn't make any sense to me in this product. So there's no mic processing in here. This is a program processor. And there's a few other things that didn't make the cut, but they were pretty small. So effectively, you're getting yourself, the most advanced version of Stereo Tool you could get in a hardware device. That was a long
How many
answer
bands?
for a simple question, wasn't it?
How many bands?
I think that's variable. I don't think it's fixed, and
It used to be extra.
that's a Stereo Tool thing.
Yeah, well, it used to be extra to get more than like 3 or 4 bands. So
Oh
if I
no,
wanted bands,
there's nothing extra in on this. This is um, whatever feature you would get with the maxed out Stereo Tool, that's in here, plus some other stuff that isn't available in the maxed out Stereo Tool, with the exception of the BIM, which is not in here.
When John Mackey, I have a question, and I may have missed something because I came in a little bit after you've gotten started, so I missed the very beginning. But my question is, if I'm understanding this correct, this is an audio processor. Well, it's not a pre-processor, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so it's a full audio processor. Does this have the option? I'm sure it'll give you composite output, right?
It does. Yes.
And how many composite outputs does it have?
It has two
Two?
independent composite outputs. Yeah. So they're
Yeah.
independent level controlled, but they're derived from the same processing output.
Okay, good. And the more I ask you, the more questions I have here. Sorry for
Yeah,
monopolizing.
that's okay. You're asking the right guy.
So will this processor do a single sideband on the composite output?
Did I not just say you were talking to the right guy? And now I have to tell you, I have no idea. Yeah. I don't know about SSB. I remember when that was kind of a big deal at Telos, and Frank was writing papers on it and everything else. I don't know if this one does it or not, but I'll find out from Hans and come back to you, find out. But I just don't know.
Okay, then one last question. Can you inject the subcarrier? Well, now I'm at two questions. Can you inject the subcarrier to have the subcarrier mixed with the composite output?
We don't have
do that?
yeah, we don't have a subcarrier input here.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then the last question is, will this give you a digital multiplex output?
It will. Yes, that's it's a little hard to see. I'm going to point my mouse at it, so at least you know the general direction, but that is the AES 192 output. So that's digital multiplex there.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
The term AES 192 wasn't familiar to me.
Okay. When I think it might have been Frank Foti who first proposed this idea, and so in the early days, I think we might have even called it, Frank Digital or something like that. But the idea was to get composite over, AES basically. And in order to do that, we have to run it at 192 kilohertz because the actual out of audio band components are, I think, as high as 84 or 85 kilohertz, somewhere in that neighborhood. So in order to get that to actually pass, it has to be 192 kilohertz Or I guess there's another one. It could be a multiple of 44.1. So what is that, like 176 kilohertz or something like that? But it's either 176 or 192. In our case, it's 192 kilohertz. And AES 192, I think, and then we could be wrong, by the way, but I think that's the term that everyone kind of settled on and said that describes digital composite. But if I'm wrong, I'm happy to change that label too. It's I
When you
think we
say,
see some proprietary labeling out there, you know.
when you say this, it sounds like it's intended for 5.1 surround or something like that as a
No, this is stereo audio processor.
stereo audio. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that 192 you
Welcome.
mentioned, that's gotta be 48 kilohertz times 4.
It
Yeah.
is. Yeah,
Yes,
it is exactly. And that's because the Nyquist frequency is at 96 kilohertz, and we need that in order to pass, this 80 to 85 kilohertz stuff that's in, FM multiplex.
And the SCA at 92 kilohertz, actually.
Well, yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Yeah,
That
that'll pass too. Yeah, if you could get it in there. We don't have an SCA input, but if you found a way to weave that in, it would pass that.
it's getting harder and harder to do 92 kilohertz subcohertz.
I wonder why that is. Something else I don't know. So that's what I get for saying, "Hey, I'm the answer man." That's what I get. You guys start asking questions I can't answer. So I've been humbled.
Catfish, and that kind of an OEM question. What's a production run for you guys?
Well, for this product, we've been building them 25 at a time,
Okay.
but I think I got to crank that up because the dealers start getting cranky. I start getting Doug Tharp calling me on the phone saying, "What's taking so long?" And that's not fun. If you
Where's
know
that
Doug,
inventory?
where is it? Yeah, where are my units? And so this one's probably going to go to 50, I think, on the next run. But it's a good question.
Next,
Okay, next. So this is pretty fun.
How much did you say they were retailing for? Did I hear 3,900?
$39.99, but make Doug Tharp give you a discount. Make him do it. If he doesn't, call me and I'll drive up the road and give him trouble. Okay.
They'll buy you lunch.
I know.
Buying the lunch, what can you complain?
So forgive me, but I'm going to start with a product that you may already know because it'll make sense foundationally as we talk about the new product. So we launched this, I guess, about 3-4 years ago. The idea was let's make a simple broadcast, robust audio interface for computers, a USB audio interface for computers. And it's stereo in, stereo out. It's not a multi-channel device. But this was our answer to many people who were using like computer motherboard audio and other things like that were, it was kind of not that professional. And so I thought, hey, let's make a low-cost interface. But when I went out and looked at low-cost USB interfaces, for the most part, I saw things like the Focusrite Scarlett. And these are great products, by the way. Not saying anything bad about them. They're wonderful for what they're designed for, but they're not exactly broadcast. So you end up with guitar inputs and mic gain controls and things that might be okay in a recording studio, but you might not want people fiddling with in the broadcast plant. So I thought, well, we could make something that's doesn't have any of those extraneous things. And that got me to doing some research. And what I learned was a lot of people that were using low-cost USB interfaces were experiencing a problem. And the problem was that they were getting hum, buzz, whine, and RF in their audio. And so I kind of started digging into that and realized pretty quickly that the problem with most low-cost USB interfaces is that they have a ground loop between the audio and the computer. And that's just inherent by the way they're powered. They're being powered from the host. And so you're pulling computer power in, and then you're connecting that together with your audio ground and sending it out on its way. So it kind of got me to thinking, how would we solve that problem? And, long story short, the answer is to completely isolate the audio from the computer side of things. And so we do that. We do that in three ways. The first way is we regenerate power. So we pull in the computer power, and then we use that to energize DC to DC converters that are isolated, and then we have new power on the secondary side. The second thing we do is we isolate the data from the computer. And this was just fun. I can't even tell you if this is absolutely essential or not, but it was a blast because they make chips that can cause data to cross a barrier, either capacitively or inductively. I think it's mostly capacitively. And so you've got a barrier that you can use to isolate two noise domains, and then you can get the data to go straight across using these isolating chips. And of course, I had to use one of those, so that's in there. And then the third way is that we do everything fully balanced. And so this is kind of the last frontier of the low cost interface is, even if you isolated everything, if you end up with an unbalanced audio input or an unbalanced audio output, you still have the potential for ground loops. And so this product eliminated all of that. And we've sold a lot of these. This is a very popular product. And I get the comment all the time. It's like, I had a problem and I plugged this in and the problem went away and I walked away and I've never dealt with it again. And I love that review. I just love it when people, just put our product in and then forget about it because, it solved a problem and they don't need to think about it anymore. So this came out, I'd say, 3 years ago, something like that, maybe 4 years ago. And so a guy in Canada called me, one of our customers, and he said, "Have you ever used one of these on a Yealink phone?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, I have, and they're great." And so, long story short, this guy had figured out that a Yealink phone in particular, and there may be other phones that do this as well, but the Yealink phone in particular acts as a host, as a USB host to a USB headset. And it does so generically. In other words, it's not a proprietary, you got to have a Yealink headset in order to use this, so you could use this headset that I'm using right now. I could plug it into the back of a Yealink phone, and the Yealink phone would ingest the microphone audio and it would feed the headphones. So he used that and said, "Well, since this thing connects to computer hosts, I decided to plug it into the Yealink and let it act like a host, and it works great. And I'm getting audio in and out of my phone system as a result of this." Well, I had to try it, and I did, and it worked brilliantly. And so the next step was to make a product out of it, because even though this product exists, it seemed cooler to maybe make the product kind of fit the form factor a little bit better. So here's a new version. We call this the USB phone gizmo. And there's what it looks like on the back of the phone. So it's kind of convenient. It's like a little backpack back there. And in fact, I have one here. Now, when I'm done sharing my screen, I'll show it to you. But the idea is you snap this in place, you plug in the USB cable, and now with a Yealink phone, you've got a broadcast phone. And this particular Yealink phone that we're using, I think, might be one of the most popular SIP phones on the planet. I mean, they're everywhere. They're ubiquitous. And so all you do is you right on the front panel, you've got a headset button. And if you push that headset button, you're on the air. So you'd feed a mix minus from your console into the input, and it's a Studio Hub input. And then you'd take the phone caller audio from the other Studio Hub output, and you'd send that to your console, and it sounds great. And you might be thinking, well, okay, so what's the application? You know the application, but I'll tell you anyways. So if you think about phones in broadcast, all the way back to hybrids originally, and even DSP hybrids, we had to deal with POTS. We had to deal with essentially a two-wire system. And we had to figure out how to, kind of sort of simulate four-wire with a two-wire system. And did a good job. Credit to Steve Church for figuring this all out on DSP and making, the original Telos hybrids, amazing products. They did a great job for us. But most of the world has moved on from POTS. Most of the world has moved into IP telephony. And so I see this a lot on social media. I'll see guys saying, "Hey, what do I do? I can't, I've called the phone company and they're telling me that we're not going to be able to get POTS anymore, but I've got this 1X6 here that, that's how we do our broadcast phones. What am I going to do?" And the most common advice I see from other broadcast engineers is get yourself a gateway or an ATA. And so, if you got 6 phone lines, then you need 6 ATAs to simulate POTS, and you plug that into your VoIP phone system, and now you've got simulated POTS lines, and you're back to being able to use your 1X6 phone system. It's not a bad answer, and it's not terribly expensive. So, but it's also kind of a weird answer if you think about it, because, well, shouldn't we be moving into IP at this point? It's like, is the answer really to simulate POTS? And Telos, to their credit, and this happened while I was still there, jumped on the IP bandwagon, and we made the Telos VX, which is it's a VoIP based broadcast phone system, and that exists. So that's another option. So you could, if you were doing talk shows, you could get ATAs and use your old equipment, or you could go to Telos and buy VX, so get new equipment. But now there's a third choice, and the third choice is what we're offering here, and that is something in between. Something in between using something that probably should have been retired 10 years ago, or spending $10,000. And that's to basically have a single line phone interface. You get to use your Yealink phone system. Go find the SIP service of your choice, plug it in, and you've got at least you've got the replacement for a single line phone hybrid. Might not be what you want for a talk show necessarily, but it certainly is going to replace any requirement that you might have for a single line, call in contests or recorded phone line kind of situations where you're capturing audio for various reasons from the phones. Anything where you would have used a hybrid before, you can use this in place of it. And the really cool thing is the entire price, including the phone, is less than the price of a hybrid. So that phone right there, I bought on Amazon for $150, that Yealink phone. And unlocked, by the way, unlocked for $150. And then the USB gizmo is $299. So the two together, I can't do arithmetic. What's that? $450 before your service. And then we have a partnership with MaxConnect where you can buy a bundle that includes a year of Max phone service if you don't already have a service provider, and you get the phone and the gizmo and the year of SIP phone service for I forget what it is, $699 or something like that. So still cheaper than the price of a hybrid. So this is kind of a cool way to deal with phones in broadcast. And credit to Pierre, the fella in Canada who came up with this in the first place. Have you ever connected the USB gizmo to a phone? Well, yeah, now we have. So I'll pause for questions, and then I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'll show it to you. I'll put it on the camera so you can have a look at it.
There's the form factor of the case. Is it identical to the USB gizmo?
It is not. It's a little bit different. It's longer and skinnier, and it has a USB-C connector on it, and it's coming out the side instead of a USB-B connector. So they're a little bit different. But one question I get from people from time to time is, well, what if I hate Yealink? Because apparently there's some love-hate out there for Yealink. And the answer is I wouldn't buy this one, and I'll show you why in a minute. I wouldn't buy this version of the USB gizmo if I was going to use a different phone, because it probably will look kind of funny sitting there on the desk. And that's hard to understand until you see how, what it really looks like. I would probably buy the other one. I'd buy the USB gizmo because then you can kind of screw it to the underside of a table and then run a cable up to whatever phone you want to use. But I also have to say, it may not work. because, you know, we tested the snot out of this with the Yealink and it works great. And I can't guarantee that it's going to work with a Polycom phone or, you know, or some other phone that you might choose. It might. It kind of depends on whether or not they do the same thing as Yealink with the USB, you know, the USB audio host. If they're doing that, then it should work, but it would be really hard for us to, you know, to test them all. So that's kind of experimental. But you know, I tell people if they say, you know, I really want to use my Polycoms because I love Polycoms, I always say the same thing. I say, hey, call me back. You know, I want to know, did it work? And you know, and if it worked, we'll share that information with everybody. So, you know, hopefully we'll build up a little database over time of, you know, which phones work and which phones don't work. Any other questions?
Can you tell me how much that, the first device we talked about, that would be the better replacement for Scarlet or something like that?
Oh,
that
sure.
looked like-
That one's also $299. Either one, the phone gizmo or the USB gizmo, they're effectively the same product in slightly different form factors, and they're $299 each, list price before Doug gives you a discount and throws in free shipping.
And I'm assuming that what I saw there looked like a couple of female RJ45 connectors. I'm
Absolutely.
assuming you would come out of that with, so
Yep.
that's balanced audio left, right, input and output with studio connections.
You got it.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm here when you got all the answers. So that's 100% right. And we even include the adapters because some people who buy this, they've never seen Studio Hub before. And you know, so they take this thing out of the box and they say, why are there computer connections on the side of this? And you know, so we include the adapters to XLR so they get it.
Oh, so it includes the adapters?
It does. Yeah, we include the USB cable and the adapters because we figure you're taking this thing out of the box on Sunday night because it's the only time you had to play with it. And I don't want you yelling at me. So I want everything in the box so that so you have a good experience.
And you own Studio Hub anyway.
I do. Yeah. So this is the other one you were asking about. And you know, the cool thing with this one is that, you know, it's got the feet. And so it comes with some screws and you just bolt it to the inside of a wall or bottom of a counter or table inside of a cabinet. You know, it's pretty utility box. Steel, you know, this is it's kind of the SM58 of you know, of broadcast USB interfaces. You know, you can bang the nails into the stage, and then when you're done, sing through it. So it's like that.
And it pulls its power from the USB, correct?
It does. It is a USB. I think they call it bus powered, USB bus powered device.
Yeah.
So there is no external power supply for it.
Thank you.
Welcome. Good questions. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and then I'll do a little show and tell here. Have you look at this. So here's a Yealink phone. By the way, I got this one from Amazon. I bought 4 of them at the same time, and 1 out of 4 failed. This was it. So this is the bad one. I'm not quite sure what to think about that. I hope I had the unusual experience. And but this one's going to go back at some point. So this, you know, this is the Yealink phone we recommend. And then right here, if it was powered up, you'd see that this is lit normally, and you know, there's a headset button here, so you would just push that, and when you turn on the headset, you're on the console, and you turn off the headset, you're either on speakerphone or handset. It's really straightforward. And then the way the backpack attaches, and here's why this product itself probably wouldn't work really well with you know, any other kind of phone, because it's got the stand integrated into it. So it goes into the slots in the back here. I have to be careful with this. My wife said that last time I did this, I scratched it, and you know, she's quality here, so she's going to give me a hard time if I scratch this. But that's it. That's how you install it. Let me finish the installation so you can see the whole process here. That's it. You take it out of the box, you snap it in place, you plug in the USB, you're finished. There's nothing else to do. This is a broadcast phone now. So I like products like this. It's pretty cool. Oh, there's one other thing. I didn't even mention this. This is something that that you broadcasters will appreciate. Um, and I kind of found this out by accident. This this little logo here, HD, okay? This is what the SIP phone providers came up with as their, their branding for what they call the high fidelity phone connection. And what's interesting about the high fidelity phone connection is that it's 7 kilohertz bandwidth. So instead of, normal phone constraint of 3 kilohertz, you get, somewhat opener, bandwidth. So the calls sound better. And, but here's the thing. It turns out, they slapped this label on it, HD. It's G722. I kid you not. I was shocked when I found out. I was like, oh, you're kidding. That's all it is, just G722. Codec's been around for ages. And yet they put this new label on it, said it's HD voice. Well, here's how it works in the SIP environment. When two SIP phones see each other on the network, they negotiate the best quality connection they can. So if one is capable of HD voice and the other one is capable of HD voice, G722, then they connect using that particular codec. And all of a sudden, you've got a really nice sounding call. And you might be thinking, well, okay, I can't really use this for the call-ins because, who knows what they're going to be calling in on, probably mostly mobile phones, so it's going to be pretty garbagey. But here's how you can use it. Back before Steve Church made the DSP hybrid, you guys, some of you may be old enough to remember how we used phones before Steve figured out how to make phones, instant. That was you got on the hybrid and you tweaked it up to make it sound good. In other words, you scheduled the phone call in advance. You couldn't have someone just calling into a talk show. That we needed DSP hybrids for that. But before that, we still used phones. We just used them different. Hey, we've got an interview with the governor this afternoon, so get the phones ready. At 2 o'clock, we're gonna go live to the governor. And so the engineer would be setting everything up and getting it ready so that it would sound good on the air. And but you could do the same thing here, except it wouldn't take that much work because all you have to do is call the governor's office, in the morning and say, "Hey, let's get him on the right kind of phone over there." And he probably has it already, but if he doesn't have it, put him in the room that has the right quality phone and let's test it in advance. Oh yeah, that sounds great. And now at 2 o'clock, you're ready to have the interview with the governor. And it's just as good as had you sent out a codec because that was the more recent thing that we did in order to improve the quality of certain kinds of events. We would send out a codec. Well, the codec's built into the phone now, so you could just arrange it by making sure that you call ahead and get them on the right kind of phone. Most SIP providers do support this natively, so it's really just a matter of testing it. And in case you've forgotten, it's 7 kilohertz on the top end, but it's 50 hertz on the bottom end. So it's significantly better because we go from high passing the voice at 300 hertz all the way down to 50 hertz. So now we get some real quality audio involved. And we're still using something as simple as a telephone to do it. So that's pretty cool. That's also all I've got, unless you guys have questions.
No other toys to show us?
Well, there's always something. Working on all kinds of fun stuff all the time. If you get you have you guys seen the U192? Are you familiar with that? I always get surprises when I ask about this. I don't think we've done a good job of marketing this. Let me share my screen again. I'm going to show this to you. Might be interesting.
Something you guys sell?
Yes. Something Doug sells. I don't sell it. He's the sales guy. You see my screen okay?
Yep.
All right. So this idea came from Josh Bone at Max Connect. He called me up on the phone and he said he was doing some stuff with Stereo Tool at the time, and he said it's so annoying that with Stereo Tool, in order to get composite out, it's like a science experiment. You have to go find a sound card that will actually pass, pass 90 kilohertz audio, which is not common. Okay, so you're already kind of in exotic land in order to ask for that, but then you're asking for more than that. You're also asking that it be able to deliver pretty high level of signal, and and that it not have issues. We can't have distortion, noise, or frequency response issues within that composite signal. So in the stereo tool world, uh, they would basically tell you, go find a sound card that will pass composite, and that's how you use stereo tool. And then Hans would complain to me sometimes. He'd say, why don't the broadcasters take me seriously? And I'd say, well, telling them to use a thing that's not made for what you're using it for on their broadcast chain might not be turning them on. Like like, hey, here's a hack. Here's a workaround. Maybe you can make a sound card work. And of course, that's what they were doing for years. So Josh's idea was, well, why don't you make a USB composite sound card? And that's a pretty interesting idea. So let me show you the back of this thing. So we made this little half rack box. It's a USB interface, so you connect this to your computer running stereo tool, and then it's got analog in and analog out. That's discrete if you want to run your processor that way. It also has composite outputs, two of them, and then it's got digital inputs and outputs. And this digital output can be digital composite, so it comes out at 192 kilohertz, and there's a sample rate converter built into the digital input. So because this device runs natively at 192 kilohertz to do its job, and you might be taking audio out of a console at 48 kilohertz. And so we put a sample rate converter on the digital input so that you don't have to generate 192 kilohertz out of your console just to get the audio into this thing. Built-in power supply, built out of steel, rack mountable. I think there was a picture of the rack mount here somewhere just before we came to this page. Yep, there we go. And so it's kind of it's the broadcast version of the sound card hack for stereo tool. And so this has been pretty fun. I had a guy local in Nashville not too long ago. Maybe some of you guys know him, Matt Aaron. He used to be with Dave Ramsey, and he came over to buy a couple of these, and gave it to him with the box and the foam and everything. And he said, "Oh, you should keep this. Keep the box. Keep the foam. That's expensive. You should." And so he takes these two U192s. He wraps the power cord around them and tosses them in the back of his truck. I mean, literally throws them in the back of his truck. I was horrified. I had to call him that night. Did it work? Yeah, of course it worked. So that's why. We wanted to build something solid, something, reliable and robust, so that Stereo Tool has a shot at actually, being used by real broadcasters, as opposed to just the hobby crowd. So that was fun to do. It was a fun project. I was annoyed at Josh because he came up with the idea before I did, but it was still a good idea.
How much?
I think this is $500 or $600, somewhere in that neighborhood. Although if you stay tuned, we may have the ability to bring the cost down. I'm working on something right now that may bring the cost down to under $500, but right now it's over 500.
Two questions.
Yeah.
Where's the name Catfish come from?
I never tell.
Something to do with noodling?
No, nothing like that. I will only say this one thing. I had the nickname long before it became, an internet fake out. So.
And number two, this inspires me to have you comment as to Eric Small's composite clipper.
Oh, yeah, that's a name from the past. When I first joined Telos back in 1999, we were reselling that. Like, I think there was an Omnia version of it, but it was really Eric Small's board inside, and that was really a thing in the day.
Yeah.
Kind of competitive with Mike Gideon's 4C composite clipper. The magic Clear Channel one. So
Well,
Clear Channel
I
composite.
was with Mosley in the 70s when we introduced the composite STL.
Okay.
And so that was always a question. Uh, and I just suggested people use back-to-back Zener diodes to do the same thing. I
Well,
see you have a background with PRE. Did you know my good friend, speaking of Mosley, Jim Tony?
of course I knew Jim. He just passed away recently.
I know, I heard that.
Yeah, sad to see, but you know, he had a pretty good run. Jim actually did some contract work for Angry Audio, and I love Jim, and I just love working with him. And he
He
would
was fun. He was a fun coworker.
just fun. Oh my
Little
gosh, he was
eccentric.
so hilarious. And so yeah, he would do projects for me, and he'd do it for beer money. That's what he called it. This is my beer money. So
So Tony's remote control and Tony's friggin' limiters. We had some products there.
yeah, yeah, did
You know,
some
this is
amazing
deja
stuff.
vu. Have we had this conversation before? Maybe I was on another call with you, with somebody that knew Jim at Pacific Recorders. I left Mosley in '80, so he was still there, I think.
He and I didn't meet until about 1984, something like that. So he must have gone to PRNE after Mosley.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I think after PRNE he went to Continental, if I remember right.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. See, this is a small industry, you know. We just all like jump into new ponds, and it's the same fish. So
My embarrassment is when I announced I went from Mosley to Harris. That means Santa Barbara to Quincy, and let's don't talk about that. However, I'm a richer man because of it.
yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you my Steve Church story. So Steve recruited me to come run Telos. And his pitch to me was, I said, Steve, I don't think I'm going to like Cleveland, Ohio. And I was born and raised in San Diego, and his pitch to me was, "Oh, Mike, I've been to San Diego. Cleveland is better."
You bet,
For years, I rubbed that in.
but only in the
Better,
winter. Right.
better, huh? Really?
Well, thank you, Michael.
It's my pleasure.
And
Yeah,
Doug
thanks.
for lunch.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, and Doug, thanks for buying them lunch.
Yeah.
Them. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I'll tell you, Catfish, that my wife is not in broadcasting, but some of my stuff has rubbed off. And I was having a conversation with her while I was driving here about your products and what you talked about, at least a year ago, on Barry's Luncheon with, I just escaped the gentleman who does the mic preamp stuff for you.
Oh, Corny.
Barney, yeah,
Yeah,
and you were
okay.
talking about tailoring mic preamps to, among other things, the gain structure that the microphone itself might be limited by. And so you threw another 6 dB or 12 or whatever it was in. And my wife reminded me that I just had this conversation about why is there a version 4 of the Focusrite units, because now they're making up for that gain like you guys did a year ago. So I thought that was an interesting catch on my wife's behalf.
So she doesn't work in broadcasting, but she uses Focusrite equipment. What does she do? Voice work? Or
No, but she knows that I install it in studios and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And
All
she's for about the last 4 months, she's been tagging with me doing software development for presentations. So all of a
Okay.
sudden she's like, "Well, how do you import 4K video, and how do you pull the audio out? And what are you looking at when you're EQing?" And so she's finally, after 27 years of marriage, she's finally going, "What does EQ stand for again?"
The dark side. She's coming over to the dark side. So
Yeah, but
the product that you're talking about is actually pretty interesting. The Cloud Lifter, I think they were the first guys to do this. And if you've ever seen the circuit for a Cloud Lifter, it's a preamp. You know, it's not a preamp, it's a preamp. It adds exactly, I forget the exact number, but I think it's like 26 dB of gain, but it's precise. It's not a variable thing, and it turns out that it's a very clever circuit. It involves 4 field effect transistors and 4 resistors, and that's pretty much it. And it's brilliant. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is a really brilliant idea. The problem though is that it kind of works if your preamp isn't very good. You know, let's say you buy, something, I don't want to dodge, I don't want to say anything dodgy about anybody, but let's say you bought a Behringer mic mixer and, or, something else, and it had, cheap mic preamps in it, and you turn the gain up all the way because you've got an insensitive microphone, like an SM7, for example. They get hissy as you turn them up. And so the entire idea behind the cloud lifter in this case was let's let's interface with the microphone and then get enough gain so that that microphone preamp can work at a lower level where it's not as hissy. That's it. It's a brilliant idea, and I mean they made a lot of money with this thing. Of course, now there's other people that have jumped in and said we make boosters too. But unlike in broadcasting, the podcasting community thinks that this is magic. And so I can't tell you how many guys I've talked to in the podcasting community who I practically beg them. I say, please take the cloud lifter off of our preamp. It's a recording studio grade preamp in there, so, and they won't. No, that's magic. That's what makes it sound so good. Yeah, it's really funny because it deteriorates the performance of a good quality preamp, but it improves the performance of a mediocre quality preamp. But it is a really good idea, for cheap mic.
I can interject something about this. Say a good condenser microphone versus a good old fashioned RCA ribbon microphone, which had very low output.
I was thinking 44, yeah.
44 or even 77. I have an old Magnacord PT6. The input impedance to the microphone input impedance is 50 ohms. You look at the transformer inside, which I can't remember the name of the manufacturer, but if you go to one of the old catalogs, it says 100 ohms to grid. And then that 100 ohm input is paralleled with another 100 ohm resistor. So the input impedance is 50 ohms. And then there are two 250 k ohm resistors from a balanced line input, so that the same transformer can be used for both line or microphone.
Oh, okay. All right.
And it has a 10,000 to 1 attenuation for the line input, and then they boost it. The preamp itself is good for about 104 dB of gain for the ribbon microphone, which works very well because the microphone itself, the hiss level is pretty much gone with loaded that way, and the hum, and yet you have enough gain so that the microphone can operate at a distance, say from a boom, maybe 2 feet above your head, to get the sound through at a decent level for whatever you're.
Now I want to make a 100 dB mic amplifier. You got me started. That sounds like a lot of fun. So,
Anyway, such as that worked out. That's my experience with that. So, and you cannot use that preamp with a modern condenser microphone.
No, because they can't tolerate a 50 ohm input impedance.
No.
Two microphone questions here. First of all, Michael, you sound great. Thanks for using that for presenting on your boom mic. The audio coming out of Portland is really good too. What are you guys using there for microphone?
It's in the camera. It's a Anchor Power Conference C300.
All right. It's doing a
It picks up
doing a good
everything
job.
in the room.
Yeah. It is doing a good
I'm
job.
right next to it, and John there's all the way in the back. So
Yeah. And of course, I invoked Eric Small's composite clipper. Let's talk a bit about the REP 111C transformer.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I did for a telephone interface.
Oh, yeah.
Station.
Oh,
Whatever
yeah.
happened to that? By the way, that was magic in interfacing a composite STL receiver to the old Iron Fireman exciter, which was direct FM. And by the way, it was used in the Mosley SAK1 stereo adapter kit. Talk about old. This is 1960 stuff now.
Yeah, those
stereo
those
only came
trans
along in 61.
those transformers are really something. If you try to find them now, you go to maybe I don't
eBay.
even know if you could find them on eBay now, maybe, but they go for a lot of money. People it's an artifact now. It's it's not even a transformer anymore. It's a legend, and
Yeah.
so you go in to buy it. But you remind me of my early days at PRNE. A lot of people don't know this, but PRNE had a technical advisor by the name of Dean Jensen, which you may know that name
Oh,
from
yeah.
Jensen Transformers. Well, he was the PRNE technical advisor. He kind of, I'm not going to say he oversaw everything we did, but he had his fingers in everything that we did. And so after I'd been there for a very short period of time, they said, "Don't make yourself too comfortable. You have to go spend some time with Dean." And so I had to go to Hollywood, and I spent a month there as a little baby engineer working at the feet of Dean Jensen. And man, you talk about a sip from a fire hose. So I still don't understand transformers like he did, but he knew all kinds of interesting things about how to build audio stuff that I still do to this day. Just little tricks and secrets that you know why can I guarantee my consoles never have any RF in them and everyone else has trouble? Because Dean taught me how to keep RF out. So there's that's a blast from the past. And um, he made an equivalent. It wasn't exactly. He had a transformer called I think it was called the 111C or PC or something like that. It was kind of
Yeah,
his
I don't know
clone.
who manufactured those. I think it came from the telephone business, didn't it?
It did. He didn't, but I think by the time they got
Western Electric.
discontinued, he made something that could replace it later on. And it was crazy. It was, a couple $100 per transformer, which is
Well, thanks
nuts.
for talking about it. I feel young again.
Say again, Ben?
I believe that Peerless made the 111Cs for Western Electric. Western Electric didn't make much. They put, like RCA, somebody else made it and they put their label on it. Because they made so many things for the phone company.
Yeah.
I think Western Electric ended up buying Peerless. Or there was some business relationship there.
If it was made for Western Electric by somebody else, the Western Electric part number would have a KS in front of it. For Kearney standard. If Western Electric made it themselves, it would not.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting. But you could use a 111C coil as a isolation transformer on 110 volts because it'll pass 19 hertz because of course it has to pass the ringing voltage, which was 19 hertz, 110 volts.
Not for very much current, though.
No, no.
Catfish, I think this story goes back to the 90s when Telos brought out the first electronic hybrid that I got a chance to play with. Is that about the right time period?
Would that have been Telos 10?
Black rack mount, beautiful, out, nice and clean. Could not be used around VHS wireless microphones. That was my
Yeah.
first experience. Drag
Yeah.
all the receivers away from the console doing corporates and drag them up to the stage and send everything back line level because you had to be 15, 20 feet away with receivers. But it was a beautiful unit.
Yeah. The early days of Telos were pretty rough. There was Steve was brilliant, just absolutely. I mean, it was such a privilege to call him a friend and a mentor, but the early days of Telos, he didn't have a lot of respect for hardware. And so it was kind of, we outsourced hardware. And by that, I mean, he would just tell the contract manufacturer to, here, put this chip in there and then do this and then do that. And here, figure out the audio stuff. And so some of the stuff that came back, because contract manufacturers, they're not generally experts in keeping RF out and things like that. So it was probably from that era. But of course, Telos has grown up since then.
Well, it sure helped us mature in the rental side of stuff to go ahead and kick up to UHF.
Mm.
But nice units. I think I still have one on the shelf in the shop. Anybody want to rent one?
While we're into nostalgia, did you see the first half of 60 Minutes Sunday night? He was celebrating the 50th anniversary of Wozniak and Jobs. That's when
No.
it started, and their circuit boards, and then they followed on from there.
Wow.
Havana syndrome.
Yeah, that was the second half, I think.
Messing your mind up with microwaves.
Is it microwaves? I thought it was ULF or something.
They said microwave,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
pulsed microwaves, but
They didn't say what frequencies. It probably was a little bit of everything.
they probably have kept it classified for good
Yeah.
reason.
Well, there's a reason they shield those 2.45 gigahertz magnetrons. I mean, they heat up coffee really well.
Thank you for lunch.
Yep, thank you, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the
Oh, it's always nice to be had, Michael.
it's nice to be had. Yeah. All right.
And
Great.
we'll see you.
Thank you, everyone.
you
It's nice to see
tomorrow.
everybody.
Yeah, I guess I'll see you again tomorrow. And
Yeah.
and again at the again in San Francisco. So we're gonna make the rounds here. So
All
thanks
right,
again.
great. Thank
All right.
you.
Yeah.